Hello there everyone, and welcome back to the next video for the Clone Wars MOC update series. And today is a pretty exciting episode because I get started on the village area. You can see one of the houses. Beyond that 41st ATRT driver, I start on one of the houses, and then on the left there you see some of the trench. So I start in the trench, the house that has that trench going around it. That's what I start to do in this episode, so it's pretty exciting. I go through a few different design phases as usual and update you guys as I go along. So I hope you guys do enjoy, and let's get right on into it. Alright guys, so it's time to work on the village here. The first building that I'm going to try to tackle is the one I've been looking forward to and the one I think is going to be most interesting, and that is this building on the far, kind of the right side, the closest to the end of the table down here. Essentially what I want to do is vary based off of Stalingrad building, is kind of have like a destroyed building and then have a trench run underneath it. So that's where I kind of have this all lined up right here, where the 2x4s would be the building, and then the log pieces would be kind of the trench. I'm still not 100% sure how this is going to work, or if it's going to work, but that's what this episode is all about. So I guess I will try and see how this goes, and I'm pretty excited. I hope it'll turn out okay. Without any further ado, let's get started. Alright, so I just showed you guys the layout. Now I actually have started to build. So I took down a few of these 16 by 16 plates and lowered them so I could do the ground level of the trench here. And you can see I started to line up all of the 1x2 log pieces in there to show you where the trench might go. And then I laid down these light gray parts to show you where the building might go. I'm realizing now that the building's gonna have to be pretty small just because of how big I want the trench to be, and I don't really want to extend it. I can't extend anything on this side because of the hallway, or that side because of the hallway. I could technically up here extend it into here if I want, which I might do, and then I can't go back there because of the underground hideout that I showed in one of the previous episodes where that tunnel leads into. So there's not really many options to go. I could go in this second one right here, like this area over here I could make part of the trench, and I might do that because I'm realizing now how small this building is. But for now I'm going to continue to work. I just wanted to show you guys kind of what I'm thinking for how the trench might look, and then the foundation of where the building might go. Just want to show you that real quick, and I'm going to get back to work now. Alright, so I've been working more on this, carving it out, and as you can see, I've used a lot of these brown 1x2 log pieces and a few other brown, reddish brown parts, and kind of outlined what the trench is going to look like, and that, you know, that center part where the building's going to be is still right there in the middle. But I wanted to show you this kind of outline that I did with the reddish brown logs. I think just for I'm a little pressed for time and part availability, I think I am just going to use these 1x2s as the inner lining of the wall for this trench, because again the main trench is going to be over here. That's the big main trench, so I used all my interesting technique and pieces on that trench, and this one over here is going to be a little bit more simplistic because it's more about the building, and then kind of this trench under here is kind of a background to it. I think I am just going to use the 1x2 logs in there. You can see I added in some variation with a few bricks, so instead of just 1x2s, the log pieces, there's a few bricks in there as well just to help break it up a little bit. Over there I've got some like snot technique right there. I was able to use a few brown parts to separate it, kind of like a snot technique, so I thought that looked good right there. And then there's your clone trooper. For size reference, he should be able to peek up over the wall pretty easily now. And yeah, so this is kind of the bottom of the trench. You see some crates and stuff all over the place, and then here's the outline. I think I'm going to have the trench continue over here a little ways, and maybe connect to that building. I'm really not sure yet. There's a lot of different ways that this kind of village can go. I've got it planned out in my head, but there's a lot of different things that have kind of come to light now, just with how many different options I have for this area of the build. But for now I wanted to show you kind of a few different details of the trench right now, because I've got the outline pretty close to being completed, and now I'm going to keep working, but I wanted to show you guys kind of what this is going to look like in this design phase. Alright, so as you can see, I did a lot more work here. For reference, this giant structure here is not what the building is going to look like whatsoever. I just stacked a bunch of 1x4s on top of each other to show you guys what the size is going to be like. So this floor right here would be like the first floor, and then down here is the basement area, and you come out of the basement and you're into the trenches. That's kind of the whole idea behind this little section over here. As you can see, I went in and added in how far I want the trench to go. So you see it'll kind of go off this way, in kind of a diagonal formation over to that way, and then I just filled in some of the other gaps here, started filling in all the different plates. So now you really can see what I am thinking for this section of the build with the building right there, and then the trench that kind of goes all throughout here. So I'm really excited about this, and I'm going to continue to work and update you guys as I go along. So I've been working on the building here. As you can see, I started to do this building. I have to build it up pretty tall because this level right here of the trench is supposed to be underground level, and then these plates up here, like these ones, are ground level where all the other street and the buildings will be. So right now I'm kind of building the lower foundation and getting up to the top part. So as you can see, I was contemplating whether or not to do this a little differently, or I was thinking about doing it similar to those two watchtowers. And my thought on it was, I thought it might look weird if there's just a different building design this close to the watchtowers. So I decided to go with a similar design. But as you can see on a lot of the watchtowers, and particularly this one over here, I mixed a lot of light gray and dark gray together to create a bunch of different patterns. Same for this one right here. So what I decided to do differently for this building was, instead of doing that, I used all the same pieces with 1x2 light gray, dark gray, 1x1s, tiles, studs, masonry brick, all this sorts of different stuff. And instead, I decided that I was just going to do like strips of color. So you can see in the middle right over here, I've got like the gray that runs through the building and then kind of outlined by the dark gray. So I thought that looks really cool, and it's a different style than these other ones where it's very random. Every other kind of part in the wall is a different color, either light gray or dark gray. So I decided right down the middle will be a part of like light gray, and it'll be surrounded by dark gray. So it's just a different pattern, changes it up from the rest of the build, and I think I'm going to do that for this building entirely, of have these different parts that are different colors and they're more uniform compared to random. So I thought I'd update you guys on the design for this house, and I'm going to continue to build it right now. Alright, so I did a lot more work on the building here, and I kind of finished all four sides of it, and I am ready to move on to the next portion of the building here. So I want to show you guys that. Real quick, I was setting up some of these 41st Clonery Customs ATRT drivers, and I've used them, a few times in other MOCs and stuff, and I've been placing the 41st throughout this MOC just to kind of get a sense of where I want figures to be placed, and because I'm not sure if we'll use the 327th or the 41st. It really depends. So I just thought they looked really cool in this trench type environment. I love the 41st when I was a kid. The 41st has always been my favorite like clone troopers, like my whole entire life. And then in the past, I'd say like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I kind of drifted more towards the 212th, and I've kind of fallen back in love with like 212th. So like the 41st and 212th are like my top two favorite clone, like Battalion, Legion. I just love the 41st and the 212th so much. So I'm generally curious, because this is one of my like favorite topics in Star Wars, is to talk about your favorite version of clones, just because it's such like for Clone Wars fans and for prequel fans, it's just like that's what you talk about, is your favorite clones, because the clones are the best. So definitely, if you guys are still watching here, put your comments below and tell me what your favorite type of clone is. For me, it's definitely the 41st and the 212th. I absolutely love those two. So I'm definitely curious to hear what your favorites are, because it's one of my favorite discussions ever. So definitely let me know in the comments, and I'll be replying to some of those. So last you saw, I didn't really have much of this other side done over here, so I did complete the work over here. The shape is still a little odd, as you can see. I'm still trying to decide whether or not I want to angle this. So I contemplated, like, thinking, should I kind of just use some jumper plates and make this building at an angle? I tried that, and it kind of made me like run out of room on the trench over here, because when I put it at an angle, it kind of takes up a lot of space. But I still might try it. I just wanted to complete the build first before I try to move it to an angle. So as you can see, the front is starting to get complete here. And over here is kind of the entrance to the building. So if you remember, I said that like the trench was kind of dug out and built underneath the house. So like the ground level would still be above on the house. So this is where that door is supposed to be, like where the ground level is on like all this terrain in the town and stuff like that. It's all supposed to be ground level to this. So that's why the door is over here, and that's as high as it would be. And then the basement is underneath there, and that's what the clones kind of would walk in and carve out around the building. So this is the main floor, and then next I got to add a roof and a few other things to make the building complete. But this is what I meant by kind of ground level. That's the door. So alright, well, I'm going to continue to keep working on this building and update you guys as I go along. And then over here I kind of channeled my inner World War II builder that I built a few MOCs back when I was doing a lot of World War II stuff. I still love World War II stuff, but I just don't really build it as much. but I kind of used a lot of 1x2s, 1x4s, and 1x1s, all sorts of different plates, and you can kind of see the texture. When you stack them on top of each other, you can see how there's a bunch of lines and different textures. It's a really cool design for buildings, and that's what a lot of World War II users, or World War II builders, kind of use for buildings to give it a nice texture. So I kind of did that for this side, and I actually definitely like it. There's so many different ways that you can use this texture and design to create different patterns on buildings. So this was just one of them that I did. There's definitely a possibility that I could go back in and just completely kind of change the kind of formation and texture of it, but that does take a lot of time and effort. I don't know if I'll have time to do it, just because of how long it takes to pry apart all the 1x2s and put them back on top of each other, but I think it looks pretty cool. I definitely love using this kind of technique with the different 1x plates to create unique textures for your building. So definitely try that if you guys are working on buildings. Take a bunch of plates, start stacking them on top of each other, and try to see different patterns and techniques and shapes and all sorts of different stuff that you can create. So that's what I did for this side of the build. Alright, so as you can see here, I started to work on this back side, completing it. So you see I filled in some of the gaps right there down the middle. There's a few small things I want to touch up and kind of make it more connected, as you can see on the right side. It kind of just stops, the pieces don't connect to each other, so I'm going to tear up some of that and make them connect. But what I also did was that little kind of blown out hole down there, that's kind of supposed to be where like clones are crawling out of the building into the trench if they're stuck inside of the house. So I wanted to make some sort of battle damaged area that like was kind of blown out, or the clones just like carved out, so you could crawl under the house and crawl back out into the trenches over here. If you're like pinned down in this house and you can't run out into the street, you just jump down to the basement and then crawl out here and you're in the trench, and you can do your flanking maneuver, or you can just get out of there. So that's kind of the idea behind that, which I kind of like. So there's that. I just used some slope pieces in there, cheese slope, inverted, a cheese slope, a inverted slope, and then just a normal slope as well. So I think that looks pretty good. So now this side is getting close to completion. Now the hard part, I suck at roofs. I'm horrible at building roofs. I've always just been really bad at it. So that's kind of the hard part, and I have one design that I'll show you guys real quick here. So here's the first roof design that I came up with. Pretty much what happened was, if you can see this right here, it's 2 modified bricks and then 2 1x1 plates on top of it, and it gives a kind of a cool diagonal shape. I was messing around with my smaller parts and I created that design. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I wonder what I could use that for. So then I just built this quick roof and put it on like all 4 corners. You can see there's one over there, and they're kind of on every single corner right here. So I thought that was pretty cool, and then I kind of just designed a roof based off of that. I mean, it's not really the best, so I'm not incredibly happy about it. It just looks very, it looks too big, even though it only is hanging off of the like actual building. I don't know if you can see it. It's only really hanging off like one stud, so it's really not that much bigger than the actual building itself. But when you take a step back, it just looks really big on the building. Maybe you guys think otherwise, but for me personally, it just right away it felt a little too big. But I did like the design with those 1x1 plates on each of the corners there, so I thought that was cool. But yeah, this is kind of the building so far, the roof. What I was going to do was make like, actually here, I think it's down here. I was gonna make some of these, like a little bit like a kind of like a piece of cover that you could take cover behind on the roof. So you'd be able to take cover on the roof, kind of like that, and then I'd place it down and maybe build another one on top. So it'd kind of be higher like this. It'd be kind of a squarish thing that'd go on top of the building. So maybe that would work. It's really hard to say. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish this portion up top and stack it one higher, and then see what it looks like. And if that doesn't look good, or if I still don't really like the roof, I'm going to redo the roof entirely. But one of the main things was just I wanted to show you guys that I completed that side of the building with kind of the damaged part in the basement. So I'm going to continue to work on this upper part, and I'll keep you guys updated. Alright guys, so after a lot of trial and error, I am back, and I've figured out a roof design that I'm actually fairly happy about. So if you remember that last roof I showed you, I wasn't a huge fan of. So I tossed that out and went with a totally different design here. You can kind of see now it's sort of like a kind of a sentry position, almost like a mini watchtower. Not really watchtower, just a balcony lookout. So you could get someone up here kind of taking cover, kind of sniping up here, giving covering fire. So I had this kind of idea to build this kind of square, area where someone could go up here and take cover and still fight up here. So that led me to multiple different designs, and I finally landed with this design right here. So as you can see, first off, I tiled off each of the sides here, so it just looks a lot cleaner and a lot better and a lot nicer. And then I haven't done anything on the inside of that yet, but I probably will. But here's what we're looking at. So pretty much I've just got, I don't know what these are called, but they're like 1x2s with a like gap in the middle of them, and they can give a really cool shape. And then I've got some round 1x1 tiles that I got in a new order, and I was like, well, I might as well use these. So I put those on there on each of the corners, and I think that kind of makes it not as plain, because at first I just had a bunch of just normal tiles, and I was like, something's missing. So now I just added these round 1x1s, and they give a nice little, kind of shape to it, and it just looks a lot nicer. So these are really, really cool. I don't know the technical name for them, but they are very, very cool. Here's a little closer look at those, so you can just see how they kind of round off at the top, and they're very clean, and they just add a lot more instead of just like a normal 1x1 tile or 1x2 tile. These round tiles look really, really good. Here's another view of it just looking straight on. This is what it looks like from up close. So you can see underneath this kind of tower thing, you can see some bricks underneath there. Those are those 1x2 bricks with the gap in the middle. So instead of just having it be all smoothed out, I thought it'd be nice to add a different kind of texture to it and have that gap in there, so it just looks like it has some more depth instead of just a normal, regular piece on the side. So I thought that looked pretty cool, and so I have those going in there just to give it some interesting depth. I'm definitely liking this roof a lot more than my previous one. Maybe the previous one looked good. I'll be curious to see what you guys think, but this design definitely to me is superior in that way. Just it's more the simplicity of it, I think, makes it a lot better. It's a lot smoother. Everything's tiled off, and plus I can put a trooper up here, kind of like this. If I put a trooper up here, and he can kind of fire down on the droids. So I thought that would be really, really cool, and I'm definitely happy with how this looks compared to the last design. So hopefully you guys are digging it as well. And the last thing that I did after I did that roof was I put a little door through here. So if you remember, this area is the village, so the path is going to come around here and link up to this house. So this is the front of the house, even though this is presented kind of towards the front of the MOC. This is actually the front of the house, so that's where the door would be. As you can see, I put something in there with a little handle right there. I can show you guys how I did this design. I actually was going to use this design for a wall, and then I was like, you know what, this actually might look really good as a door. So I thought that was really cool. It's kind of like the tiles are just like setting up on these cool 1x2 pieces with studs on the sides. I don't know exactly what they're called, but I'll pull it out and then I can show you guys how I did that. But here's the door. I think it looks pretty good. And now the front of the house is getting more complete. I think what I want to do is right here, you can see I didn't do any detail compared to that side. So if you guys agree with me here, I think I'm going to make this side the same as that side and just add some detail to it, so it's not just so plain in dark gray, that it actually has some texture to it, and a few light gray plates every once in a while. So hopefully you guys think that's a cool idea. Obviously all this stuff in the front here is going to be the path, so the path will come around this way and go into there. There'll be another building right here, stuff like that. But yeah, I think the door looks good, and then you also can kind of see down there is another let's see if I can get closer. There's a few slope pieces in there, kind of like on the other side, to where if you're over here in the trench, you can crawl underneath the building through the basement level and come out the other side in that other hole on this side where you could crawl out of the basement. So if you're stuck over here and you don't want to go that way, you can crawl under the basement that way. So those are just some of the small details where some figures could be placed. They're kind of falling back from over here and retreating and trying to crawl and escape through the basement. So that was another cool detail. But for now, I'm pretty happy with the way this building is looking. And of course, what's cool about over here is you get that giant separatist fortress in the background with the building. So I always think that looks really, really cool. And I'm super excited about this village area, because I think it's going to be pretty cool, especially with the giant separatist mountain and fortress in the background. So hopefully you guys are liking this area. Again, a lot still needs to be done before it's completed in a sense, to where it's like clean and polished. There's still a lot to do, but as a rough outline, the house is looking okay. A few things to touch there, and then obviously some more terrain. And the trench, I think, is looking pretty cool, at least the shape of the trench and stuff like that. So hopefully you guys are liking this building as well. Alright, so here's the design for the door that I said I would show you guys. I kind of was just messing around with some of these pieces. I don't know what exactly they're called, but they're the plate, and then it's got two studs kind of on the side, so you can attach a bunch of things. So essentially I used a lot of those. And on the back here, it's kind of hard to tell, but essentially what I did was, here, that's a little better view. Now you can see where I placed all those. So like right there, and right there, you can see where I placed those like modified plates, spaced apart with a few bricks and plates, and then I put tiles on top of them to smooth it out, and they all connect and line up pretty well because these are all plates, and you can kind of match up with different studs, like different plates. So I used like two. So like I would put this on, and then I'd put a 1x2 plate, and then a 1x2 brick, and then a 1x2 plate. I think that's what I did for those, some sort of variation like that, and then that made it so it could kind of all line up together, and then I just threw a doorknob on there with a 1x1 cylinder. So nothing too complex, but I'm pretty happy with that design, and if you do want to use that design, go ahead, because that would be awesome. That'd be really, really cool. But if not, just keep it like these pieces. I think I found them at a Lego store one time on the pick-a-brick wall, and I was like, these will be amazing pieces to build with, especially building. So I knew I had to grab those, and they finally came in use. I haven't really used them much, really, at all, but now with this door, I was able to use them, which I was very excited about. So there's kind of how I did the door. Alright guys, so I did a little bit more work here to try and make this a little more polished. As you can see, I've got two clones here stacked up getting ready to breach this room, but the main thing I did here was I started to work on the actual road itself. So if you remember, I have this path going all throughout the build, and I decided to add a little bit more down here. So now the path actually looks pretty good. The building looks a lot more complete now that there's a path over here. Just makes everything look a lot cleaner. You can kind of get the idea that this path is going to go all the way back and connect over there as well. So I'm pretty excited about this path. And then here's another angle. I also added some terrain on the left there, as you can see. Now I'm definitely liking the way this building looked. I wasn't too sure about it a while ago, a few clips back, but now I'm definitely happy with it now that I have added the road and the clone troopers and that door especially. Now you can kind of get the feel of what this whole area of the village is supposed to look like with this building. So definitely really happy about that. There's the path, and then like I said, the path will continue over that way. But for now, I think I'm going to end it off here. Now I've got a nice, kind of somewhat complete build where I can get a sense in my head of what this is going to look like once I finish up all these small details. But for now, definitely a lot more happier with the way this turned out than I was earlier. Here's another look at that building, and the more I look at it, I'm definitely happy with the door. I think I really do want to change that left side though, of where it's just dark gray, and change it so it actually matches the right side of the building where it's a little bit of dark gray and light gray. And yeah, so I think this is a good spot to end the episode on. And now that I've got the landscape in, a little bit of the terrain and the path, I think it gives me a good idea on what I want to do to finish this village, and actually gives me a good idea on how I want to proceed with the rest of the village. So that's always a good thing, and I guess we'll move on to the outro right about now. Alright, that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys did enjoy. I wasn't too sure how this portion of the build was going to end up. I think for now I'm okay with it, but I'm definitely going to try to touch up a few things. I might even change a couple things, like for the finale. I might go back in. I'm going to give it a while. A lot of times I just like to stop and keep something up, so then a couple of days later I look at it and maybe come at it with a fresh mind, because I've been working on this part of the build for like 2 or 3 days straight. So I'm just going to kind of say it's good enough for now, and then I'm going to come back a few days later, look at it, and then think if I like it or not, and then probably make a few changes here and there to improve it. So I hope you guys did enjoy. I'm very interested to hear your comments, so definitely leave those in the comment section below, and I hope you guys have a great day, and may the force be with you always.